It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Remember, how far is too far is a selfish question. It's all about what we can get out of a relationship, and it's not about the other person. And it's not asking God what he wants to use our relationship for. The verse continues. It says, rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own self-interests, but each of you to the interests of others. So the answer to this question is that we should not look at our own interests, but to the other person's interests. Not physical, short-term interests. I'm not saying, well, what do they want? Go for it. Not physical, short-term interests. They're probably the exact same if you're dating them, okay? I'm talking about long-term stuff. So let's throw out this question, how far is too far? I've got a better question for you. If you're dating, if you're in a relationship, if you ever plan to be in a relationship, I'd write this down. This is a good question. It's a good basis for you. It is, how can I glorify God in my relationship? How can I glorify God in my relationship? Another way to ask this question is, how can I protect and honor my significant other in my relationship? How can I protect and honor my significant other in this relationship? Another way to ask it is, how can I best take care of the person that I'm dating? One more time. How can I best take care of the person that I'm dating? And finally, how can I honor this person as a child of God and not an object? How can I honor this person as a child of God and not as an object? See, these questions are not selfish. They're honoring to God, and they're putting the other person first. It really is all about inviting God to be a part of your relationship. And this is the key to having a great, God-honoring, Christ-centered relationship, is asking this question. If you're doing something in your relationship, or if there's an area you're not sure is godly, you don't know if God's on board with, ask yourself this. Is this honoring them? Is it bettering him or her as a child of God, long term? Maybe, is it preparing them and keeping them holy for their future spouse? That's another good question. Face it, a lot of relationships fail. They do. You might not. You probably won't marry the person you date in college. You certainly could. I did. But it's very possible you don't. So how can you keep them holy and pure for their marriage partners? Remember, we have to change from thinking, how far is too far, to the different question. How can we honor God in this relationship? I guarantee you it'll change your relationship and it'll change your perspective. I guarantee it. Now, I by no means consider myself a relationship expert, by far. The only reason I feel comfortable speaking to y'all about this is because I've made some mistakes. I've struggled with this. I've asked that question. I've gone down the wrong path in some areas. So I feel comfortable bringing it up to y'all. But Helen and I are by no means perfect. But we've been advised to ask these questions before we got married, and it really helped us out. And we want to help y'all out too. So my wife is going to come up. She's going to give you some more relationship wisdom and some practical advice. So let's give it up for Helen Lane, everybody.
Nice. Hey guys, can we just clap for Thomas, please? He works really hard. He works like 50 hours a week. He's studying. He has like 2 more sermons to write for next week, and I just thank him for his time here, if you get to talk to him later. Yeah, so Thomas started hitting on the question that we started asking not too far into our dating relationship, but and that question is, how can we honor God in our relationship? And I guess I just want to tell you, we didn't always ask that question. I love thinking back to how we met. We met in high school. We were good friends. We played Frisbee together. We were really involved in Young Life together, which is really fun. Anybody do that in high school? Yes. Cool. All right. We did that. We got to see each other in a lot of environments, and so it was really cool because we saw each other's character. We saw what each other was like, and I think that set us up well later on as we began to date. But one of my favorite stories is the day that we officially began dating. So like I said, we met at our high school, and we were home for the summer in between sophomore and junior year of college. And we decided to go hang out at our old high school. We used to walk around the track, play tennis, do stuff there. So we go there, we picked up some Slurpees on the way there, and we're sitting down and we're like, okay, we're official, we're dating, we're in a relationship. Yay, being stupid. So it's just a silly moment like, okay, let's make some rules for our relationship. Just kind of joking around. And the first rule we made was always share your Slurpee. Yes, always share your Slurpee. We were very serious. That's still a rule in our relationship. But we're sitting there joking around, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, like, I have this, question in my head, like, what about the physical stuff? I don't know if I want to say anything. Like, what should I say? And so I'm like, well, what about, like the big elephant in the room? And he's like, what? And I'm like, what about physical boundaries? And right then, as soon as it came out, I was like, crap, he probably doesn't even want to date me anymore. Like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, he probably regrets this decision immediately. But it was awesome because we actually had a good conversation about it. We came to the consensus, we didn't want to do anything more than kiss in our dating relationship. Like, that's just the clear expectation that we went ahead and laid out. And that was day one of our official relationship. And I point out that story just because we had a good conversation. We set a clear expectation. It wasn't monumental, nothing too crazy. But we were on the same page, and I think that really, although it's really minor, was just the beginning of us learning to talk about our expectations and to try to set ourselves up well for a relationship that we were both coming into knowing what the other person thought. So maybe tonight, afterwards, after this, you need to have a conversation with maybe the person you're dating. I don't know what that is. Maybe you'll learn what that is, after I continue to share some. But, take this as a good opportunity to talk to your significant other, potentially. All right, so I'm going to be sharing just a couple principles that guided us in our relationship. Like Thomas said, we started asking the question, how can we honor God in our relationship as Christians, as people that want to glorify God individually, but also together. So, if you're writing anything down, this is my first dating principle. Thomas touched on it a little bit, but it is what you are doing in your dating life now has consequences. Hashtag, you might not marry this person. I love Twitter, so I love hashtags, and Thomas kind of hit on that. You might not marry the person you're dating. So the first principle is what you do now in your dating life has consequences, and it will follow you into marriage. I think this is something our culture has tried to do. It's tried to separate the dating process from marriage. I think, yes, you can go on casual dates with random people. Like, I think that's great, a good way to get to know people. But if you're in a serious dating relationship, you can't really separate that from the marriage process, because what you do in that dating relationship will follow you ultimately into marriage, because dating is a transitory phase that is preparing you for marriage. And honestly, that's why it's so difficult, That's why it's difficult to navigate what's okay and not okay. Because you could end up with this person, you might not. And so, you don't have the safety of putting the ring on it. Like, you haven't done that yet. You don't have the security that you have in marriage. So, guess what? Thomas and I have actually been dating longer than we've been married. Isn't that crazy? We've dated 3 years, and we've only been married for 9 months. So technically, the foundation that we've set up in our dating relationship is really what, we are depending on for what our relationship is like now. So, like I said, what you do in your dating life has consequences and will follow you into marriage. One of my favorite scriptures that kind of refers to this is Proverbs 24:27. It says, "Do your planning and prepare your fields before you build your house." I know that sounds kind of funny, but I love this scripture because all you're doing in dating up to marriage is you're just planning and preparing for building this house. Thomas and I want to have a lifetime marriage. We want to be married and we want to die together. Like, we always joke about, till I'm dead. I'll make you dinner till I'm dead, or like, whatever it might be. We know we're in it for the long haul, and we wanted to start with the right foundation. So, an example of what I guess, a value that we took from dating into marriage has been touched on a little bit, and that value is purity. And I know when I say that word, all you guys are probably like so overplayed, like, I don't know, you have baggage with that word, most likely. But I just want to say that because we valued purity in our dating relationship, that has only added to our marriage. So we're married, and the way that purity plays itself out in our marriage is our bodies are each other's. You know, we know that we want to be faithful to each other. I'm not concerned that if some woman throws herself at him, that Thomas is gonna, you know, be excited about that. I know that he's gonna honor me and be faithful to me, because I saw it play out really well in our dating relationship. So that's just an example of something that we did dating, and that will just add more value to our marriage. Side note here, I don't want you guys to think, you know, you should be afraid of getting to know someone because you might not marry them. I'm just saying that whatever you do in your dating relationship, you'll deal with in marriage too. So if you're dating someone and you don't like that they are addicted to video games or, you know, something random, a habit or something, you know, talk to them about it. If you see big conflicts, talk to them about it, because potentially, you know, if you marry that person, you're going to have to just deal with it even more when you live with him every day, right? Like Thomas has an addiction to Mountain Dew. And video games, no. So, you know, I'm not saying that there's someone out there perfectly who will meet all your standards and criteria, because there's not, but just to be able to talk about things and be on the same page. All right, number 2. The second principle that really helped us in our relationship was purity isn't the absence of something. Purity isn't the absence of something, but the presence of God in your relationship. All right, so I started talking about purity. Everyone was like, but what I really want to push here is that we've thought about purity as not doing certain behaviors, right? We're like, purity equals no bad words, not watching that thing, or not doing those sexual things, because those are all impure. Like, yes, you know, that's part of it. Those things are impure sometimes, but what I want to stress is that it's not just not doing a behavior, but purity is really inviting God into your entire relationship. So if you're a Christian, like just like every part of your, you know, life, you're trying to honor God in that. And so purity here is just a place where you are inviting God into your relationship. Like, the best thing that happened for Thomas and I's relationship was when we started asking the question, how can we honor God? Because what happens immediately? Immediately, everything you're doing in your relationship, you're giving it up to God. You're saying, okay, was that honoring to God? And so just by asking that question, you're bringing God into your relationship. You know, it's not about being perfect, because we're all imperfect, right? We're all going to mess up. It's really about wanting God to be central, like having a desire for Him to be glorified in your relationship. And you know, if you don't, like, ask God. Just be like, God, please, like, help us, you know, desire to glorify you. Help us to look to you for guidance, and just continually ask Him, are we glorifying you? Because really, you know, I can't give you super specific things other than physical boundaries and some of the other things I'm going to say, because everyone's different. Like, one example for Thomas and I, we were long distance. Anyone done a long distance relationship? Yes. Okay. That has good parts and bad parts. Like, you're free to do whatever you want sometimes, right? Like, you're like, cool, don't have to think about that person. I can do my homework, right? No. But the other side of that is that when you do see them, you're like, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks, and like you want to jump their bones and like hug them and squeeze them and all other things. Right? That's tough. And so for us, this was an example where, you know, I really felt called and Thomas, we felt strongly about, hey, we go to visit each other, what do? We stay in a different place than with each other. That was just something that we really felt God, convicting us about. So whenever he was coming to visit me, I was like, hey, I got this guy you can stay with. He knew someone. And was it annoying? Yes.
It was the worst.
It was the worst. Yes. It was annoying, right? And I stayed with some random girls at Tech. I was at JMU and he was at Virginia Tech. But it was totally worth it, because when someone was like, oh, hey, Thomas is here, oh, where is he staying? I was like, oh, with my friends. Clarity is great. We just set ourselves up for success. There was no gray area of, oh, I'm not sure where you're staying, and then you just end up sleeping in my bed, and then, oh, we end up making mistakes that we don't want to make. So that was just a clear thing that we knew we really wanted to do. And yes, I remember one time he actually did stay at the house that I lived in, and he stayed downstairs, and I was like, oh, he's downstairs in a room, and he's far away, it's fine. But I remember the next day, I was a small group leader. Any small group leaders? A couple? Okay. And I was talking to one of my small group girls, and she was just like, oh, he stayed at your house? And I was like,